In this video, we're ranking the 5 best smart TVs under $500, and one thing becomes clear. The TV that offers the best value isn't necessarily the cheapest, and the most expensive one doesn't automatically win. So let's break down the top contenders and find out where your money goes the furthest. Number 5. TCL Q6 Series. If your budget is extremely tight and you're trying to stay as close as possible to the $300 mark while still getting something that feels modern in 2025, the TCL Q6 is where I would start looking. The reason it lands at number 5 isn't because it's bad television. In fact, for many people, this is probably the smartest entry point into the premium-looking TV market. The reason it's ranked here is because once you start comparing value rather than just price, some competitors simply give you more TV for the money. The 55-inch TCL Q6 frequently sells between $299 and $399, and at that price, it's hard to criticize too heavily. You're getting a 4K QLED panel, Google TV, Dolby Vision support, VRR gaming support, and a design that honestly looks far more expensive than its actual price tag. If someone walked into your living room, they would never guess you spent barely over $300. Where I think buyers need realistic expectations is picture quality versus marketing. TCL advertises HDR and premium color performance, and while both are technically true, brightness usually falls between 450 and 600 nits. For regular television, sports, YouTube, and streaming shows, that's perfectly fine. But if you're expecting an OLED-like HDR impact because you saw Dolby Vision on the box, you're going to be disappointed. The real value here is that TCL avoided making major mistakes. Color performance is good, gaming performance is responsive with roughly 10 milliseconds input lag, Google TV is easy to use, and reliability has improved significantly over the last few years. For seniors, the voice controls and simple Google TV interface are particularly valuable because they're easier to learn than many competing systems. Audio is probably the biggest hidden compromise. The 20-watt speaker system gets loud enough, but dialogue clarity isn't exceptional. If you watch lots of news channels, documentaries, or television dramas, you'll likely want a soundbar eventually. For budget shoppers who simply want the most features per dollar spent, the TCL Q6 delivers excellent value, but the TVs above it start offering meaningful upgrades rather than just additional features, which is why it lands at number 5. Number 4. Hisense U6 Series. This is where I think the conversation changes from cheap TV to smart purchase. The Hisense U6 isn't the cheapest television on this list, and that's exactly why I like it. Too many consumers focus entirely on spending the lowest possible amount of money instead of maximizing value. Those are two very different things. The 55-inch U6 often sells between $350 and $500 depending on the time of year. That's usually around $50 to $100 more than a TCL Q6. The important question is whether you're actually getting enough improvement to justify spending that extra money. In my opinion, absolutely. The biggest reason is picture quality. Brightness reaches generally between 600 and 800 nits, and while that doesn't sound dramatically higher on paper, HDR content looks noticeably more impactful in real-world viewing. Movies gain more depth, highlights become more convincing, and the television simply feels less compromised. Hisense also gives you full-array local dimming, which is incredibly important in this price category. Most buyers don't pay attention to local dimming when shopping, but they definitely notice it after they bring the TV home. Dark scenes look deeper, blacks appear darker, and movie watching feels more cinematic. What I appreciate most about the U6 is that the extra money isn't being spent on flashy specifications. It's being spent on improvements you'll actually see every day. Audio performance is another area where Hisense delivers better value than expected. Dialogue reproduction is cleaner, voices sound fuller, and older viewers who prioritize speech clarity will immediately notice the difference compared to cheaper televisions. Gaming remains solid with low input lag and responsive controls, while Google TV continues providing an easy-to-use smart platform. The biggest value argument for the U6 is simple. Instead of saving that final $75 and settling for a lower-performing TV, you're buying a television that genuinely feels like a class above many entry-level competitors. That's why I believe it's one of the smartest value purchases in the entire budget TV market. Number 3. Roku Plus Series QLED. This might be the most underrated value television on this entire list because it focuses on something that many reviewers completely ignore: ownership experience. The Roku Plus Series QLED usually sells between $400 and $500 for the 55-inch model, which immediately creates a challenge. At first glance, consumers often see similarly priced competitors offering higher brightness numbers, more gaming features, or more impressive marketing terminology. The Roku doesn't always win those battles on paper. But here's what I've learned after years of reviewing televisions. The best value product isn't always the product with the biggest specifications. Sometimes it's the product that creates the fewest frustrations over 5 years of ownership. Picture quality is excellent for the money. The QLED panel delivers vibrant colors, strong contrast, respectable HDR performance, and brightness levels generally around 600 to 700 nits. It's not class-leading, but it's more than sufficient for most living rooms. What separates this TV is simplicity. The Roku operating system remains one of the easiest smart TV platforms available. Seniors love it, families love it, people who hate technology love it. You don't spend weeks learning complicated menus. Everything works exactly the way you'd expect. That simplicity creates real value. Audio performance is also surprisingly respectable. Dialogue remains clear and understandable, which is critical for older viewers who spend hours watching news broadcasts, documentaries, and streaming shows. One controversial opinion I have is that many buyers should prioritize software quality over minor picture quality differences. A TV is something you interact with every day. A smoother experience can provide more long-term satisfaction than an extra 100 nits of brightness. The Roku Plus series earns third place because it consistently delivers excellent value without demanding that consumers become technology enthusiasts to enjoy it. Number 2. TCL QM7 series. The TCL QM7 is the television that forces consumers to ask themselves a very important question. Do you want the cheapest TV, or do you want the most TV for your money? Because those are not the same thing. The 55-inch QM7 regularly drops into the $450 to $500 range during sales events, and whenever it does, it becomes one of the strongest values in the entire television industry. Here's the controversial part. I think many people shopping for a $1,000 television would be perfectly happy with the QM7 instead. Brightness is where the value story becomes almost ridiculous. HDR brightness frequently exceeds 1,500 nits and sometimes approaches 2,000 nits depending on test methodology. That's not budget TV performance. That's performance that starts competing with televisions costing substantially more. The mini LED backlight system dramatically improves contrast and black level performance. HDR content finally looks premium. Movies gain depth. Sports look spectacular. Gaming becomes more immersive. Speaking of gaming, the QM7 offers 120 Hz refresh rates, VRR support, AMD FreeSync compatibility, and extremely low input lag. If you're a gamer trying to maximize every dollar spent, very few televisions can compete with this package. The biggest compromise is audio. The picture quality feels expensive. The speakers still remind you that you're shopping in the budget category. A soundbar remains highly recommended. For consumers trying to stretch every dollar as far as possible, the QM7 represents one of the rare products where spending slightly more money creates a dramatically better experience. That's why it earns second place. Not because it's cheap, because the performance you're getting for the money borders on absurd. Number 1. Hisense U7 series. When evaluating budget televisions, I always ask one question. If this were my own money, which TV would leave me with the fewest regrets 2 years from now? For me, the answer is the Hisense U7 series. The reason it wins isn't because it's always the cheapest option. In fact, depending on promotions, the 55-inch version often sells between $450 and $600. The reason it wins is because it consistently delivers the strongest overall value proposition. This television feels like a product designed by people who actually understand what consumers care about. Picture quality is outstanding. Brightness often exceeds 1,000 nits and can approach 1,500 nits during HDR highlights. Contrast performance is excellent thanks to advanced local dimming. Color reproduction is rich without looking artificial. The important thing is balance. The QM7 may win certain brightness battles. Other televisions may win individual categories, but the U7 rarely has obvious weaknesses. Sports look excellent because motion handling is among the strongest in this price range. Movies look excellent because black levels and HDR performance work together effectively. Gaming looks excellent because newer U7 models support refresh rates up to 144 Hz with VRR and extremely low input lag. Audio quality deserves special attention because many budget buyers don't want to spend another $200 on a soundbar. The U7 speaker system delivers stronger dialogue clarity, fuller voices, and a more premium sound signature than most competitors. Seniors who prioritize hearing conversations clearly will appreciate this immediately. The biggest reason it ranks first is value retention. 6 months later, 1 year later, 2 years later, this is the TV most likely to make you feel like you spent your money wisely. And for a budget-conscious buyer, that's ultimately what value means. Not spending the least amount, spending the smartest amount.